Welcome to the Lab 2 Protractor use and spreadsheet intro video. Some students in the past have had some questions about using protractors to measure angles, so I wanted to walk you through that a little bit. I do have a couple videos showing you how to use protractors that are just kind of generic ones I found online. So if you don't have a protractor at home or you didn't purchase one at the bookstore, you can print one out and use a paper version. It works just the same. I have a link to one of these on the lab page. So in all of these instructions that I give you, basically you're measuring an angle with a flat surface, and our flat surface is going to be the surface of the earth. So you're in all instances of measuring angles, you're going to line up your horizontal with the bottom of your protractor, so the bottom line here, and then where your line intersects, so in our case we're measuring sun angles, so the sun rays intersect, are going to line up in the center of this protractor. Some plastic versions have a hole in the middle that you kind of line up, or an X. And then you're basically going to use your zero, so this is horizontal, and then as we increase from horizontal, you see the angle change. Whenever you're measuring sun angle, it's always going to be the number that's less than 90. So on your lab, you have a globe, sun rays that you see on the edge here, and then you'll see each latitude labeled. So you're going to want to pay attention to which one you're being asked to measure. Follow it across to the surface. So here we've got the North Pole. You see the flat line drawn. That's the surface of the Earth that we're going to be measuring your sun angle from. And then we have our latitude, the equator, and then the Tropic of Capricorn. So, and then on the bottom here we have the South Pole. So you're measuring the angle the sun strikes that individual surface. So what might be helpful to do on your lab is to actually look at your surface and see, okay, what sun ray is pointing directly at it, and then extend that line to the surface. When you actually want to measure your angle, you're going to line up the bottom of your protractor with that flat line, and then where the sun ray is going to intersect the surface. That's why I have this protractor oriented this way. And then you can take a ruler, or you can just draw your line a little bit darker and longer, and then measure what that angle is. So for the North Pole here, our sun angle is going to be around 25. So if I move to the next location, see I've moved my protractor so that the bottom of the protractor, the flat area, is lined up with our next location. You can see that line there. And then our sun ray, you can see here striking the surface. So we line up that cross right with where those two intersect. Measure our angle here, it's a little less than 70. So on and so forth as we move around the globe. So here we are down in the southern hemisphere. Again, I've lined my protractor up with where the sun ray intersects the surface. Measure our sun angle. And this one here, we're measuring the smaller number here. So our sun angle is going to be about 45. So that's basically how you're going to be measuring that sun angle for the globe. And then in the rest of the lab, you're going to be using this Excel spreadsheet to record and calculate some of your data. So this is just a screenshot of that Excel spreadsheet. So you'll see the latitude in degrees, and then the sun angle that we typically measure at each location. And this is if we were to do this experiment in the lab, which I've given you the data for, using a solar panel. And this is the voltage that was recorded at each of those. So you're going to use the equation in your lab to determine the percent intensity at each of these. So your maximum intensity is going to be here at the equator, where you have the direct sunlight striking the Earth's surface. So each of these values here are going to be divided by what you have at 90, because that's the maximum you could possibly get. So you do, for example, 0.332 divided by 3.28 times 100, and then you enter into that whatever value you get from that equation into that box for 20 degrees. So you'll go through and do that for each. When you get to the later parts of your lab, you're also going to be using these other two tabs at the bottom. So you see each part of your lab has a different tab to it. So let's go get this file so you can see what this might look like. And I'm going to use Google Sheets as an example here. There are lots and lots and lots of different versions of Excel out there. So making a video walking you through the graphing process can be tricky because there's so many different versions, everything's going to be a little different. So here you can see when you want to go and make your graph, I don't have any data in here yet, but when you're going to make that graph, once you enter in your data, you want to measure and create a graph showing the sun angle and the percent intensity. So that's why those two are not grayed out. So to do that, you're just going to highlight the two boxes. And then in the top here, you can click Insert, and then Insert Chart. Eventually it will plop one in here, but we want a line graph. If you read those instructions, it will tell you what you should have. You're going to insert your line graph. And here it's just because I have no data, it's not really graphing things appropriately, but you'll see that information. And you're going to want to add in, if you go to Customize, Chart Axes and Titles, you want to actually give this a title. All right, so you just type in randomness here and it'll pop up at the top, and then you can go through and name your different axes as well. As you go forward in the lab, the next part, this is where you're going to be recording your information for your different surfaces, so white surface, green surface, black surface, time in minutes. When you're adding your information in here, do not put any text values in here. Excel won't like that. Once you have this all completed, same process, highlight everything you want graphed, insert graph. Sand and water, data is given to you here. I can show you what that would look like. We're going to highlight all of it. And I'm including the text at the top here because sometimes different versions of Excel are smart enough and will recognize that those are the names of the axes and will put them in your graph. Google Docs or Google Sheets might not do that. But they did. So you can see sand and water is our title. You want to go in there and customize that, and then they tell you what color line represents what data. It gave you the time in minutes on the bottom, but we need to have a y-axis label too. So you want to go into Customize and add that in here. All right, so the vertical axis or axis titles in there. All right, and then you'll go through and answer the questions based on your experiment. Now, if your experiment doesn't work, that's okay. You can always just report your data, make your graph, and then answer the questions based on what you think should have happened. As usual, if you have any questions, please let me know.